Well, the Georgia Bulldogs are going to roll down to Jacksonville as a slightly more than touchdown favorite to beat the Gators. Our buddies at BetQL are all over this one, talking about the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. Georgia's 7.5 point favorite to win the game. Billy Napier no longer the coach at Florida. Both teams off this week. Look, I don't know what to expect from Florida coming out of this thing. I know what to expect from Georgia. They're going to try to run the ball constantly. Um, Florida has run the ball well a few times this season, most notably against Texas. Their best performance of the season, although they did play pretty well against Miami for 3 quarters of that game before Miami kind of pushed them out of the way. But I think it's going to be a hard game for Florida to win. I think that Georgia is the better team. I think that if this were not a 60-minute game, I could understand how on emotion and a lot of different things that the Gators would be ready to party and do what they got to do. I'm just not sure as we look at the most recent thing from BetQL, most recent Georgia game from BetQL, I'm just not sure that they're going to be able to do that for 60 minutes. And, I write about this in over on Dawg Post. And again, you can use the code Dawg Post to get 15% off of BetQL. It gives you all sorts of data. I really use it a lot, to be honest with you. Um, I, I I just don't with Lagway. He's been all over the place. He has been absolutely all over the place. He's had a 300-yard performance. He's had five interception performance. He's had a game where he hasn't had 100 yards. That's all in SEC play. I mean, they've only played 5 games in the SEC, so it's just been hard to predict what you get from Florida. Now the defense is pretty good. But it's maybe not as good as you thought it was when you go back and actually look at the conference statistics. It's not quite as good as I thought it was. But Georgia under Kirby, the Dogs are 5-4 against the line against Florida in the last 9 matchups. They've been favored in each game of Kirby's time at Georgia except 2016. This is the lowest line that Georgia's had with the Gators since the 2020 game that they lost. Georgia was a 3-point favorite in that game. So I do want to talk about for a second the difference in the lines this year. Part of it is that Georgia is not as dominant as they were. That's for sure. But there's also the reality that the schedule is just more difficult, generally speaking. I mean, the addition of Texas, that the portal NIL combination, the clock going quicker. You're getting fewer and fewer possessions. It feels like in college football. It's last year Georgia really did have a difficult schedule. There's not much question about that. Excuse me. I am definitely getting a cold. Make sure you keep taking care of yourselves out there. A season ago, Georgia played Alabama. They played Clemson, who was ranked, Alabama, who was ranked, Texas, who was ranked, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Texas. That was that was the first 13 games of the season. They played 6 games where they played ranked teams. This season so far, they've only played 3 teams that are ranked, but one of those is on the road with Tennessee, and then you have the Alabama game at home. You got to go play at Auburn for a rivalry game, and then Ole Miss. Georgia's playing better lately, just to be frank. I mean, if you want to find something wrong, it's always out there for you to find. And then I'm not like dismissing criticism of Georgia by any stretch. I do that every day. But in the 7 games they've played, they've allowed more than 14 points twice. Excuse me, 3 times. Excuse me, 3 times. I meant to say over 24 points, not 14 points. You should probably win a game where you only allow 24 points. And they didn't, but you should probably lose a game where you allow 41. And they didn't. They've scored at least 40 points 3 times this season. They've scored 35 or more 4 times. So, I mean, there is a consistency with Georgia right now that is hard, that I don't see mimicked at other places. I think Ole Miss has been pretty consistent this season. I think Alabama's been pretty consistent. Texas A&M, yes. Nationally, Oregon's not been consistent at all. I think Georgia Tech, you could say, has been consistent in the way that they played, but I see a lot of chatter about Glenn Schumann, and I'm like, they won the national championship with that guy. I mean, like, that doesn't give you a pass forever. But when you go back and you look at Glenn's time at Georgia, I'm just trying to look for 30-plus point games. They did not give up 30-plus points at all in 2023. In 2024, we know the Alabama game, the Mississippi State game, the Tech game, and then this season it's been the Tennessee game and the Ole Miss game. Both games they won. So I'm not sure the criticism of Glenn is completely, you can't dismiss it completely, but the players aren't as good. Now, that's their fault. That's Kirby's fault. That's Glenn's fault. But like, I don't know about that deal. And then, it's like to criticize Mike Bobo is like always out there. That's like a fart joke in comedy. Like it's just always easy. It's not really necessarily correct, but it's sitting there. I don't know. But I think this team, it's up to Kirby to land this plane here at the end of the season. And Florida is a big part of that. From that point forward, you've only got 4 games left, a third of the regular season. You, right now, looks like you will not play in the SEC championship. All right, well, whatever. You got to go on the road to Mississippi State. You're going to host a Texas team that physically is probably better than anybody you play this season outside of Alabama, maybe. But they're not a good team. Like, they're not a team. I don't know what's going on at Texas. Charlotte's, and then you're going to have a massive Black Friday matchup with the Jackets in Atlanta, a game that, Georgia will probably be close to a 10-point favorite to win, and they should win. Like, let's not get confused about the Tech situation. I'm going to rant real quick. Just because Georgia Tech's really good, particularly for the schedule they're playing and how well Brent Key has done and how good Haynes King has done and all this stuff, just because they're really good, particularly versus the last 25 years, doesn't mean Georgia should not beat them. They should beat them. I mean, it's just what it is. But it's just an added stress thing. I mean, people got so used to Tech, being bad that it was sort of a joke. Georgia should always beat Georgia Tech. Let me be extremely clear about that. Like, there is no discussion. There is no, you want to dismiss what I'm saying right now? You're wrong. That doesn't mean it won't happen. But, the resources at Georgia, the players, all of it, the support, it's just not close. It's night and day between the two institutions as far as their athletic department is concerned. So, it's not okay to lose to Georgia Tech in any scenario. And, the last coach that lost, the last coach that lost 2 games in a row, it turned out to be 3 to Georgia Tech, was fired. And that was Jim Donnan. And I don't anticipate Kirby Smart losing 2 games to Georgia Tech. I'm just saying, just because they're really good, just because they're undefeated, nothing's changed. It's completely expected to beat the Jackets. So, you've got some matchups here that are, nothing about the rest of the season is necessarily easy. But let's not act like it's the run from Tennessee to Ole Miss, because it's not. It's not. That's not what this is. When you're in the middle of something, like if you lived in the 1960s, which I did not, you probably thought, oh man, there's some nuts things. Some things are nuts around here right now. But looking back on it, you can say, oh my God, this was crazy. You don't know when something... You have much better perspective a lot of times looking backwards at things. It is very possible, I would say it is probable, that Georgia has played the toughest stretch of its season. That doesn't mean these next 5 games won't be challenging in their own right. But there's none of them Georgia should lose. Not the way I see it right now. Now, if you're looking at this game, you want to have some fun. Because we only have fun. We're not betting houses and stuff. If you want to have fun, playing the numbers on this one. Is 7.5 for a reason? I've seen it 8.5. I'm going to wait on BetQL to kind of get more informed about this situation. Part of me thinks, man, 7.5, that's low. That's a low number. Georgia's won this last 3 games by at least 8 points each. So more than a touchdown. What's going on here? They don't have their coach. But I've watched Florida enough to know this season that they have plenty of fight in them. And I think that alone could, and coupled with Georgia's slow starts, if you want to call it that still. They didn't start slow against Mississippi. They scored and scored and scored, but Mississippi started fast too and scored and scored and scored. So we're really talking about the Alabama game and the Auburn game and the Tennessee game. So we're talking about those games. The other games, I don't think Georgia really started slow, so to speak. You don't, in tennis terms, you don't come out and get out 3-0 all the time. Like you do have to, sometimes people hold serve. I think Georgia, in their case, Saturday, Jacksonville, having been there, I think I don't know if this is my 30th trip or not. Oh my gosh, I gotta look that up. There's a particular, I don't know if you'd call it panic or emotion or whatever you want to call it. There's a particular feel at the beginning of a game in Jacksonville. But eventually it just becomes a football game. And then you get to the fourth quarter. And then, the sun sets and you can see the sky change over the St. John's. And we won't see that these next couple of years. There's some sadness to that, as much as I think that Jacksonville has got to do better with this game. And I think they probably will moving forward. You really want to dominate as much as you can of the second and third quarter if you're Georgia. Florida is, they survived Mississippi State, let me tell you. They beat Texas. That was not surprising. They fought LSU, but when your quarterback throws 4 or 5 interceptions, you're not going to win a game. Unless, I think he threw 5 in one game and they still lost. They almost won against Alabama. You just can't give away that many possessions. There's not that many possessions in college football anymore. The clock is going quicker. When they set the chains, they don't pause as long as they seem to used to. I don't know if they're not waiting for the referee to wave his hand, or if it's that when they set it, the person in the stadium starts the play clock and therefore the game clock. I don't know, but games are quicker on the field. Now, commercial may be dragging it out, but the 60 minutes of games feels quicker. But this game here, Georgia's it's hard to start fast when you are ground and pound. Georgia has explosive playmakers, Zachariah Branch, Dylan Bell, for sure. Those two particularly have some serious speed. We've not seen Dwight Phillips in a long time. I don't know why or why not. But Georgia has been more plotting than anything. With the way they were in, say, 2017 and the explosion of Nick and Sony, but Chauncey Bowens is not going to rip off a 75-yard run. I don't think. He's not Robert Edwards. They don't have Robert Edwards. They don't have DeAndre Swift. They don't have James Cook. They don't have those guys. Or even, shout out Zamir for that touchdown against the Gators to start the game in 2020. That's not the way they play. So the only way to start absolutely blistering fast is to get done on third down and force punts. Something Georgia really would like to get better at defensively, third down defense. They're not quite. They're in the top 90 nationally, 93, but they're not good at it. Florida's pretty bad offensively. They're 127 in the country in third down defense, in third down offense. So, that indicates to me they're not effectively running the ball the way you'd really like to. But this is not a spectacular Florida team. They're they are 3-4 for a reason, and they're people who are haven't won a game away from the swamp. People who are my age or older, they know what this was like from 1990 to 2010. They remember that 20-year period. That's 15 years ago. And this last 15 years, Georgia has won 10 of 15, if I'm not mistaken. So it's it's hard to I think it's hard for a lot of old Georgia people. Well, I would say of a particular age, anywhere from your sort of mid 30s to mid 50s, maybe mid 30s to 60s. Most of them grew up or went to college or whatever in the 90s and 2000s. And that was just total domination by the Gators. 17 of 20 or whatever it was. I mean, it was just constant. And that's not Florida now. That's not been Florida for a long time. I mean, I'm going to talk about this a lot this week, but the Florida that existed at that time is long gone, and that's why they made the change. I mean, they're trying to get that back. I don't know. I mean, that doesn't matter at all this week. I mean, I think we're going to see sort of a basic Georgia game, and if Florida plays well, it will be kind of close enough. If they don't, they'll get slow motion blown out. But it's not going to be that they're going. I mean, I think Kirby Smart would have some serious questions to answer if Georgia lost this game. And all that matters down there is winning. It's not about covering the line. But 7.5, that might, for me, that might be just a little bit, low. I do want to see what sort of the movement is later this week. But that feels a little bit low, but it's there for a reason. I mean, I know one service, DraftKings, had it at 8.5, but I think it regressed to 7.5. So people are comfortable with 7.5 right now. And I'll add this too. Anything. I mean, no one said this is a neutral field game. I mean, I'm just looking at all of the Power Five. There's just not a lot of big lines. That just kind of doesn't. I'm not saying it doesn't happen anymore, but just stick with me for a second here. Syracuse is a 1.5 point favorite. Ohio State at home against Penn State is a 20 point favorite. That makes sense. Texas is a 2 point favorite over Vanderbilt. Tech is only a 6.5 point favorite on the road. Tennessee is only a 4 point favorite over Oklahoma. Okay, it's in Neyland. I mean, Tennessee's going to win that game. That would almost be my lock of the week. You're talking in the SEC. I think South Carolina is probably a pretty heavy dog to Ole Miss because they're not going to be able to hang with them. Georgia, Florida is 7.5. You've got Carolina is a 13.5 point dog at Ole Miss. They probably should be. There's just not. Mississippi State is a dog at Arkansas, 3.5. You're not getting big lines. They're just not out there anymore. I mean, they're just not out there because it's been so competitive this year, and it's because of all the things we talked about. It is a very competitive, difficult situation right now. The Dogs 7.5 point favorite over your Florida Gators. Tell me what you think.